Hello, my name is Doug Leasure. I want to thank you for joining me for another training session for Active Planner. And so what we're doing now is continuing with our look at the database queries. And so what I want to do is take a quick review of what we were looking at previously. And so what I want to do is take it back to the Active Planner training website, sites.google.com/site, Active Planner Training. And we're looking at the resources, and under there's one of the resources is a document that was put together to give us the details that we need for creating database query formulas in Active Planner. In a previous training session, we looked at part one, the basics, and what we're going to look at today is part two, using Excel as our data source. And one of the things I wanted to point out in this document is the addendum, conversion functions, that I've found helpful. And so if we just jump down to that real quickly, the reason I wanted to do that is just in this particular training session, we'll be using some of the functions that are available for you when we use Excel as our data source. And the ones that I want to point out right now are the conversion ones. So there's will be these ones here, excuse me, that we use for converting Excel data from one type to another. So I just wanted to point this out that I did give you some of that information in this document. And then in a similar way, I've also given you some information about the convert statement in SQL Server. So I just want to let you know that those things are available for you in this document. Okay. One of the most important things that I need to point out to you when it comes to using Excel files as your database source in your queries, your database queries, is the version of that Excel file. And so what I wanted to point out is that in our data source type options, Excel 97/2003 is the option that we have. So the most recent version of Excel that we can utilize in our database queries is 2003. In fact, if I try to point it to 2007 or above, we'll get an error message saying here that when we test it that the external table is not in the expected format. And so we can handle versions of Excel, older versions up through 2003, but to 2007 and beyond is not an option. So if you're using one of those versions, just save your Excel file, do a save as, and save it in the 2003 format. Okay, the next important thing we need to take a look at is to understand that in Active Planner, when we are working with our various dimension items, whether it be the account number, the entire account number, or looking at even one of the individual segments, segment 2 or segment 3. If we're looking at other dimensional items such as the employee ID, if you're using a payroll dimension, or territory number if you're using a territory dimension, these items in Active Planner are always text. Even though they may look numeric to you, the underlying data type is text. And so we need to make sure that when we're using our source data, especially in the where clauses, when we're utilizing those, to understand that Active Planner is giving us data source of type text, which is also often called string. And we have to make sure that we are matching in Excel or other data sources the same type of the same data type. And there's where the conversion functions will come into play if we need to use those. All right, the last thing we need to take a look at then is in the Excel file itself. So let me go ahead and open up one of the Excel files that we will be using as our source and take a look at some of the things that are important here. And so the first thing I wanted to point out is that in our source data, we're looking at the location numbers, the department numbers, and a head count, a value that would represent the number of employees in each of these location department combinations. And so it's important for you to understand that that when we're entering these values, that we enter them as text. Now, I should say the most important is that we are consistent. Okay, so you'll see when we enter these values, we put a single quote in front of the number so that it would be entered as text. And we did the same thing for departments so that we are consistently using these values or entering the values as text. Now, to help you understand that, what is a fairly typical thing when people are entering department numbers, location numbers, etc., is they'll start entering their values, and when they get to the ones that begin with a 0 or are all zeros, they'll enter them, and realize that that Excel saw the 000 as a value of just 0, so it did not enter it as 000. They'll come back and they'll take the one exceptional item, put a single quote in front of it, and do the 000, and then continue on. And again, do the items that are different as text, leaving everything else as a value or a numeric number. And then what we end up with is this inconsistency, and this is a killer in Excel. We need to be consistent. And so, so basically, Excel could care less. It's not a database. It does not bring any kind of restrictions in what you enter in the columns in the various cells. It's very freeform. So when we're trying to use Excel files as our data source, trying to use it as a database, the burden is on us to make sure that we have the data laid out correctly and consistently, that we are treating it as a database essentially. So we must make sure that we are being consistent. And so what we can do, like I say, is to make sure when we're entering our values like this is to the things that we're using, to match our account numbers, our segment within the account number, our dimensional values, that we enter them as text. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to point out is, again, Excel is a wonderful tool, but it is not a database. So a database engine, a database tool, understands that it must enforce this consistency within its columns, within its fields. And the expectation with databases is that multiple people will be utilizing the same file at the same time, which is not true of Excel. And so the next important thing that we need to point out to you is that when we are using the Excel file from within Active Planner, we cannot have the Excel file open. Okay, so those are some of the foundational things that I want you to understand. So now let's go ahead and go back into Active Planner, and we'll go ahead and do some work here. So let's say we're doing something with head count for location 100, department 300, and we want to build a database query to go get that head count from the Excel file. So let's go ahead and create a database query. So do select type formula, and our formula type is going to be database. We click on the database query button, and for our source we'll point to Excel. We'll go browse to all of our available Excel files, and we'll choose the head count. We'll do a quick test to make sure that we have connectivity to the Excel file. Okay, so when we look at the available tables, what I wanted to point out is that within Excel, each of the tabs, so if you have multiple tabs in the Excel file, each of the tabs will show up here under available tables as the name that you put in the tab with a $sign after it. In a very similar way, you can create named ranges inside of Excel, and those would show up as available tables as well. So we'll select our first, or in fact it's our only tab in that particular file. And what we will see then is I took a look at the text typed in the first row, and each of those column headings then become our available fields. And so we can use that to create a fairly simple select statement here, a query to return the data. And so what we will want to do in our example today is to select the count, that would be the head count, from our head count tab, where the location, let's see, location number is equal to segment 2, and where the department number is equal to segment 3. And if we do a test query, let's make sure that we are testing with location 100, department 300. In fact, if we look at the select statement here, we can see that when it substitutes segment 2 and segment 3, it's putting single quotes around it. That is treating the account number segments as text. And it returns the correct value, which is then a head count total of 4. All right, so that's one of the things I wanted to cover here in our use of Excel as our data source. But let's go ahead and push on just a little bit further, and let's kind of change up things a little bit here. If you remember, I mentioned that there may be times where we need to use the conversion functions. So let's take a look at that. I do remember that one of our head counts value was 300, which is the same as our department number. So what we can do, it's a little bit tricky here, but let's use the department number in our select, and then down in our where, we'll just switch this to be the count, the head count. So basically we're just reversing these two, but it should return the department number when the location equals 100 and the count equals 300. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to make sure that you see that we're trying to match count to a text equal to 300, a text string equal to 300. And so I wanted you to see that when we try to utilize that where the fields, where the data types don't match, we get this error message. And here's where we can simply utilize one of our conversion functions to take the count and convert it to a string. And so the conversion function is CSTR so we'll just use that to convert the count into a string, which will match what we're looking for in our account segment number 3. And so when we test that, we get the result that we're looking for. well, I'm sorry, so we didn't get the result, but we're not getting the error anymore, so you can see how that would be something you could utilize then if you need to convert the Excel from one data type to another. Okay, so those are the things that I wanted to cover today, and so I thank you for joining me, and I look forward to working with you in one of the future training sessions. And thank you.